So when we start talking about tracking Windows performance, one of the first tools we will look at is Task Manager. Now, it's not always the greatest, but it is fast, it's convenient, and it's easy, and so we're going to look at that first. And I'm actually going to look at this in two places. So I'm going to start by doing it just on my physical computer here, and I'm running Windows 11. I'm also going to do it in a VM running Windows Server, and the reason is Task Manager is a little bit different. It does basically the same thing, but the interface is just slightly different. Had to stop and think there for a minute. So we're going to show you both of them. All right, so let's start by bringing up Task Manager. Now I can do this a couple of different ways. I can hit Control-Delete, which is a very common way, and then choose Task Manager. I can also come down here and do Task, search for Task, and find Task Manager here. Either way works, doesn't really matter. It brings you to the same spot. Okay, here is Task Manager. This is on my physical computer running Windows 11. And so you'll see here we have all of our processes. Here's our process name, the status of the process. And then here, this is going to be my total CPU usage, my total memory, total disk, and total network. And this is all in percentages. And you can see these numbers jump around a little bit and this order changes. What's happening is I have this sorted by CPU usage. So right now I'm using, 22, 21% CPU usage. It's jumping around. And then this is going to show me my processes in order based on total CPU usage. Same thing with memory. If I want to sort by memory, I click on memory or disk space usage or network usage. And then when I do it, the first one sorts from largest to smallest. If I click on it again, it reverses the sort order. Oops, I sorted by status there. Okay, now this is the processes. We also have performance, and this is where we'll typically come to check performance. So here's my CPU usage, and it's going to give me a graph showing my CPU usage over the last minute or so. Current stats, percentage utilization, speed, base speed, processes, threads, handles, uptime, cache that we're using, if virtualization's enabled, number of logical processors, and so all kinds of processor information. Now, this is showing me total CPU usage, not CPU by processor. What are we looking for here? Honestly, CPU usage in a system can spike. And that's not a problem. It means it's doing what it's supposed to do. So if it spikes up to 80, 90, even 100%, that's not necessarily a problem. Where that becomes a problem is if it stays there for an extended period of time. Now, I currently have 3 virtual machines running, several other applications, plus my recording that I'm doing at the moment. So you can see I'm bouncing around quite a bit. But I'm bouncing around in this, 17 to... I've seen it up to 40. Hey, there you go, 40% CPU usage. And as long as it's bouncing like that, we're okay. If it stabilizes at a consistent level, that's when we start wanting to be aware of it, especially if it's stabilizing at a relatively high level. If we're consistently running 90% CPU usage, now we may have a problem and we need to investigate a little more. That's where we'd come back to our processes and say, okay, sort by CPU, who's using all of my processor time? And that's where we start exploring. Okay, let's look at memory. So this is pretty solid, right? We're not seeing a lot of variations here, and that's kind of normal with memory. So I'm currently using in memory 26 gigabytes. It says 20 available. I have my committed memory. I've committed 28 out of 50. That, by the way, is going to include your page file, your pooled and your non-pooled. Okay, this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how you're using your memory. Now, what I want you to look for here is your committed memory. Your committed memory, right here, this first number, I've committed 28.8 out of 50. If my committed memory is higher than my physical memory, committed memory is memory that we have committed, we are using at the moment. If that is higher than my physical memory, then it means I'm going to have to go to the swap file on a regular basis. And that can become a problem. You'll see up here, I have 48 gig. So I'm good, even though I'm running everything that I am. But if that is higher than physical memory, then we have a problem. We're having to swap out memory, and that's going to slow our system down. So if that's the case, add more memory as needed. Disks. This is going to show us our percent active time. And you can see that's really low. Here's our disk transfer rate. This gives it to me in numbers. The one thing that this is not telling me, so I have two different disks here. So I've got my D drive, which is my an SSD external drive. This is my C drive. This one's running my page file in my system disk. It tells me my type. It tells me my capacity and how much I'm using. All right, things that I'm looking for here. This actually does not have my favorite statistics on disks, by the way. But things that it's telling that I'm going to look for here is my percent active time. If my percent active time is consistently high, I might have a problem. And so my disk might be slowing my system down, and there I might want to move things off to another drive, or add an additional drive, or if I'm running RAID, do a RAID, add an additional RAID drive or something like that to divide up my disk usage and lower my total active time. My Ethernet, this one I really don't like because it's going to show spikes here, but that spike is not always helpful because it's based on whatever this is. So this tells me my max here is 54 megabit. And if I remember correctly, I'm sitting on a gigabit link here. So 54 megabit, it looks like, oh my gosh, it spiked and it almost used it all. It actually didn't even come close. So for this, I prefer to look at my raw numbers down here. And that's going to give me a better idea of what I'm actually doing rather than just looking at the graph if I don't take this graph scale into consideration. And then GPU usage. Okay. A couple of other things I want to point out here in Task Manager. Now, like I said, the performance is a great, quick way to look if the system's running slow. It's one of the first things I will go to. Let me look at my CPU, memory, disk utilization, Ethernet utilization, see if I can figure out what's creating the issue. If I need to dig deeper, there are better tools that are going to give me more data. But there's a couple of other things here in Task Manager that are helpful. So the app history shows me which apps are using how much CPU or network time. My startup apps shows me all my different apps that can be automatically started. And you'll notice right here, I have some of them enabled, some of them disabled. Enabled ones automatically start up, and they are going to be using background resources. So if you want to improve your startup time and your overall performance, you'll notice it most on startup time, honestly. You can disable some of the apps you might not be using. Users shows me which users are logged in, and then details is going to give me more detail about different processes. And then finally, all of my services and whether they're stopped running, what the service is, what the process ID is. I can start and stop and restart services from here. Okay, this is the Windows 11 version of Task Manager. Now, I told you I was going to pull this up in Windows Server as well. So this is my Windows Server 2022, and I'm going to run Task Manager here. Now, very similar things, not quite as much information. Notice the difference in the look and feel of it. So my processes are now divided by apps, background processes, Windows processes, and it kind of gives me a summary of all of them. It's showing me my memory and my CPU usage. If I click, instead of having things on the side, I've got these across the top here. So I have my performance, where I'm going to see basically the same things that I saw before. My CPU, my memory, my Ethernet, and in this case, I've got two Ethernet. Notice I don't necessarily have the disks here. I'm also doing this inside of VM, so take that into consideration. Users, details, services, all kind of similar. Okay, so You're looking for the same things in Task Manager, whether you're looking at it on a Windows Server or a Windows client. Now, my guess is the next, and I haven't looked yet. Guess is with the next version of Server, we're going to be dealing with Server 2025. That is going to be built on a Windows 11 kernel rather than Windows 10. So the Task Manager is probably going to look more like the Windows 11 one, which is why I wanted to show you that. Okay, there we go. That's how we can use Task Manager to start exploring system performance issues and get an idea of some things that we may want to look at and counters that we need to be aware of in the process.